Hi everybody, my name is Giuseppe Moglia, and today we will talk about how to use JavaScript to modernize PowerBuilder application from treeview to tree data visualization. We will see some other examples based on using new PowerBuilder web browser in order to embed JavaScript code and JavaScript application, JavaScript resources into your PowerBuilder application. This is the agenda. First of all, just a brief presentation about myself and my company, of course. Then we will talk about the JavaScript opportunities and the resources we can find into the internet. Some example of interoperability. For instance, a JSON editor, a treeview, charts, and tree data visualization. This is me. My name is Giuseppe Moglia. Here the links to my Facebook profile, my LinkedIn profile. If you want to get in touch with me on these two social network. I'm working since 2009 on PowerBuilder. This is my projects. The first one is Map 1, the first release of PowerBuilder developed add-on for SAP Business One. I've talked about this in the previous Elevate edition. Then in 2016 we will migrate this add-on to the HANA DB of SAP Business One. Based on the example of Bruce Armstrong, we set up a continuous integration for PowerBuilder application using Jenkins and the PowerBuilder compiler. In 2020, I was elected as president of a parent user group of Italy. This is our website, and this year I was concentrated on how to improve our application, our user interface, using the web browser and the JavaScript opportunities. My skills are, of course, PowerBuilder, Jenkins, SQL, .NET, JavaScript, and, of course, SAP Business One SDK. This is my company. SATA Consulting is a small and medium business company consulting enterprise with a great experience in processes, analysis, and system integration. We have more than 30 years of experience of project management, deliveries, on proprietary solution and SAP Business One based developed in PowerBuilder. Now, let's talk about the JavaScript opportunities. If you do a simple search on Google with these two keywords, so for instance, open source libraries in JavaScript and open source libraries in PowerBuilder, you see great differences. The result is for JavaScript is huge, so there's a lot of resources we can exceed in order to improve our application, to make them more and more beautiful, more and more appealing. And we can add some functionalities, such for example charts, a new treeview. We are trying to introduce a 3D data visualization for warehouses. If you need a JSON editor, these are the examples we will see during this session. For instance, let's see some resources we explored and some of them we embed on our application. There are some frameworks. The mainstream are Angular, Bootstrap, React, and Vue.js. If you want to work with charts and maps, there are a lot of examples, a lot of resources. We saw D3, Charts, Chart.js, Google Charts. There's a library named Go. This is not free, is paid licensing, but it has a lot of examples of drawing charts of every type you can guess, you can imagine about. And then Leaflet, in order to draw on your application a Google map, not a Google map, but a map of your landscape, a map of routes, and so on. Very interesting is Tree.js, a library to manage 3D animations. And then we use GridStack.js, a library to implement a grid responsive into your application. We will see an example about this on production, on our production application, and much more. Much more. How to integrate? We have to use the web browser control. Here's the link of PowerBuilder 2019 R3 version, and main functions are these three, but if you want to deep dive, you have just to navigate to this link and learn and experiment a lot. The first function is the register event. In order to register an event of developed on your web browser control to the JavaScript web page. So from your JavaScript web page you can call this event and trigger this event and then manage the flow on your PowerBuilder application. And after this, the evaluate JavaScript sync and async in order to inject JavaScript code and execute it into your web page. How to do is pretty simple. Once you find the resource you want to integrate in your application, you have just to install npm or embed the resource, just inserting a link. It depends on the resource you want to use. You have to search on Google the library you need, of course, install it, create a function if it does not exist to set data your library needs. This data is always a JSON string. After that, you have to set the variable containing the data your library needs, and that called the function use this data and to draw everything you want in your library. Let's see the first example, the JSON editor. You have our objective is set a JSON and get it modified. This is an image of the installation. After that, we have to edit the JavaScript, introducing declaring a variable. The variable we will evaluate from PowerBuilder, and after that, two functions. The first one to set the JSON I will populate from my PowerBuilder application, and the second one the get JSON in order to get the JSON modified on our JSON web JSON editor. Okay. in this second function, we will see the call to our event, the event we have registered previously. This event is the UE get JSON, passing a string. Pay attention, always a string. And this string is the JSON from the editor. That's the object, is the JSON editor of our library. This is the code on PowerBuilder. We have first of all to register the event. We have seen in the previous slide, we get JSON. And after that, we have to build the JavaScript code and call it on our web browser. So we set the JSON, my JSON equal to the JSON I get from my PowerBuilder application, and after that the set of this variable injected on our web page. Okay. After that, we have to call the setJSON function in order to inject our PowerBuilder JSON to the JavaScript JSON editor. Okay? And after that, we have just to call the evaluate JavaScript async in order to run on the web browser this function. Let's see a brief demo. Okay. This is the code. This is my window. It's pretty simple. We have a multi-line edit where I set up a JSON, and we have a web browser calling a HTML page in the same part of our application. We have three buttons. The first one to trigger the register event on our web browser. The event is this one, and it receive a JSON, and it put this JSON on our multi-line edit. The second button is simply the call of the setJSON. We set up the my JSON variable in JavaScript, and then we call the setJSON function. The second button simply call the getJSON, and when the getJSON on JavaScript is called, it calls on its side the event, as we can see here. Okay. From PowerBuilder, I call the getJSON function, and it triggers the event UE getJSON, passing the JSON from my JSON editor. Let's see it running. Okay, the JSON editor has already let's see first of all the JavaScript code of this web page. Okay. Okay, this is the JSON editor. This is the JSON editor web page. We can see the JavaScript code and the initial JSON put on this JSON editor, and after that our code we injected to demonstrate the interoperability between PowerBuilder and JavaScript. So the declaration of the variable, the getJSON function, and the setJSON function we already see. There's also this alert, useful if you have to debug your interoperability. So let's run the application. As you can see, we have this JSON editor and our JSON, multi-line edit. Let's call the register event in order to register the event of the web browser into the web browser JavaScript. So let's set the JSON editor. So this JSON is put on this JSON editor. Now I can modify my JSON on this web JSON editor. Let's change this and that, and after that let's try to click on Get JSON Editor. We will have to see this JSON on this multi-line edit. Okay, fine. It's changed. It works. Good for me. Okay, this is just an example, but it's clear and simple in order to comprehend how to work with the JavaScript and PowerBuilder. The other example is about treeview. The PowerBuilder treeview has no massive load, there's no search native, you have to retrieve information as needed, or the retrieve is very slow, so because you have to do a recursive search on your data. Moreover, the look and feel is quite old. The Bootstrap treeview otherwise has a massive load from JSON as a search native. You can customize the look quite easily with the CSS files. It's flexible, so you can set up, you can add to the leaf of your tree code as many properties you want. Okay, let's see an example. Okay, let's see the code first of all. As before, we have two objects, but this time we have two web browser. The first one is a JSON editor, because the Bootstrap treeview need a JSON in order to build that describe it and to build the treeview. And on the left side we have the treeview. We have two buttons. The first one is always to register the events. The menu clicked, menu checked, menu unchecked. And the second one just to call the getJSON of, similar to the first example, in order to get the JSON from the JSON editor, and after that on the getJSON event, in order to inject the JSON from the JSON editor web browser to the treeview web browser, calling this function, passing data, the search, another parameter we will see, and two icons cable. Let's see working. Okay, we have a simple tree view on the left side and more complicated JSON, tree view JSON on this side. As you can see, on JSON, for the tree view, we need just the ID, the level, text, and tip, but we can add a lot of other arguments, and we can then use it when we will work on PowerBuilder. We will retrieve data from PowerBuilder of this tree view. So let's click on register event. Now events are registered, and after that we see that on building the tree view on the left side is created at runtime very fast. So for instance, there's a search. If we click CRP, we can find an isolated menu containing these keyword on their text. We can add a badge with the tip, and if we click on it, the menu clicked can give us this ID. This is related to menu ID. Just to demonstrate. Okay, the menu ID is the same of this JSON, the same we put on this web browser. If we change that, elevate, and rebuild the tree view, is put on this tree view very fast. If you have to build a tree view, a PowerBuilder tree view, this construction is slower. So it's very useful, this resource for us. You can also check on this icon and then call the menu checked. After that, the tree view change the icon with a filled star icon, and the uncheck, the icon is changed. Okay. Let's talk about chart. Appian released an example, a very useful example about how to use charts, eCharts and Google Charts on your PowerBuilder application. So if you want to deep dive, please download their example, take a look on it. It's very complete and very useful to comprehend how to take data from your data window or your SQL embedded and put this data on a very modern chart based on JavaScript. Let's take a brief demo. Okay, it's quite easy. You have just this is in Apache eCharts. Let's see first of all the code. Okay. The code is quite easy. We have a multi-line edit containing JSON and a web browser calling this web page. The web page is this one. Okay. It's very simple. This is the original JavaScript code. We have just added this one in order to set at runtime this option. Okay, the code in PowerBuilder is this one. Is copied from the example from Appian, but it does not build the JSON at runtime. It just take this from the multi-line edit and set to the JSON, calling the set option and calling this other function. Okay, let's see working. Let's click on build chart. We will see this data on this chart. Let's change line to pi. We will see a pi very fast. Okay, you can complicate this example as you want. For instance, you can call a new function in order to build at runtime your query, and after that build at runtime your JSON, change your theme, change the type, and as you can see, the type is changed. As I said, if you want to deep dive on this example, you have just to download the Appian example and let's take a look on it. Let's go to the last example of this presentation is the 3D visualization using Tree.js. Is very useful for all companies need to visualize, for instance, in this case, the warehouse situation. So using Tree.js, you can build at runtime a lot of objects in your web page and color them using the Tree.js to, for instance, give a red color if your measure is over a value, and so on. Let's just take a very fast look on it. This is JavaScript. As you can see, we can navigate, zoom on it, clicking on it, we can see just this item, just this location of our warehouse. Clicking on it, we can return to the original view, and so on. We modify the JavaScript code in order to, this example takes two JSON. The first one that describe the location situation, the second one that describe the values related to every location. These are my JSON onto multi-line edit. If I click on set data, as in the previous example, I will take this JSON and set data on my web browser. That's just and as you can see, my warehouse is built on is quite simple because my JSON is not so complicated as in the example. And with this data, I can see the situation of my warehouse. In a quite simple example, we have always these two JSON, and we can click on this set data, and the warehouse is built immediately. I will show you another example built on our application that is already in production. Our application is this one. As you can see, we have a lot of charts, But on this web browser, we set up more than one resource, more than the simple charts, Apache charts. In fact, we added the grid stack I talked about in the first moment of this presentation. With the grid stack, we can have a responsive and very beautiful dashboard. We can move, drag and drop our charts on our objects on this grid and adjust their dimension. Then we can save. This is just JavaScript embedded on PowerBuilder. After that, we can save. We can add a new object. We can refresh all of it, and so on. On the left side, we can see a treeview example. Let's see, for instance, brief search. We have now highlighted the result of our search, and now let's click on this menu item, and this is our form. Okay, this is just an example of what we can see and what we can do using JavaScript on our PowerBuilder code. I'm on the community, I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, and so on. Connect with us and share your example, your question. So if you need, I will answer. Okay, if you have any question, please get in touch with me. Thank you so much.